All right, we are on. Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Um, you are Theron. Welcome. Um, we're all kings and diamonds here. Excellent, Todd. Hi, Bad Panda Bear. Peace, Demish. Woohoo! Excellent people in the chat. Oh, DS Niderfed's back. Good to see you
Yay.
again. All right. Welcome to Star Trek Sunday Brunch. We are here for this. We are
Mhm.
going to be continuing our conversation in season 4 of Deep Space Nine. If you haven't been here for, oh no, I'm not mirrored. Oh no, I didn't unmirror my settings. That's right. Well, you can all tell what this is anyway. Yeah, because I'm broadcasting my Zoom and my settings aren't mirrored. Anyway. All right. Anywho, we are going to be talking about this week the season 4 episodes: Starship Down, Little Green Men, Sword of Kahless, Our Man Bashir, Homefront, and Paradise Lost. Like, perfect set of episodes. Oh, Chuck Thomasy, thank you for following. Excellent. So many great people in here. This is fabulous. Yeah, it's the Mirror Universe version of me. All right, so for people who haven't been here before, we talk about Star Trek Deep Space Nine. I'm Erin. This is my friend Samantha, and who is watching it for the first time, whereas I've watched it for many times. And so we're going to be trying to avoid spoilers. We're getting to the point where I feel like it's going to be inevitable, but if all of you can try.
It's just think of it as a challenge. Like
Yeah,
these.
we bestow the challenge upon you to try to not spoil future stuff for Samantha, but it's a lot of good stuff. And uh anyway, I say we just dive right in.
Let's do
Good?
it.
Excellent.
Yeah.
All right. So the first one we're going to be talking about is Starship Down. And this is the episode where there are secret trade negotiations happening. We all love our trade negotiations in sci-fi. With the Dominion subject that's aboard the Starship Defiant, but the ship is heavily damaged and attacked by the Dominion's Jem'Hadar soldiers, and it's basically Hunt for Red October, Das Boot, any good submarine chase film in Star Trek. So we thoroughly enjoy it. And excellent, Doctor Who. Welcome to the Discord. And Theron has only seen Sword of Kahless because they're all about all things Klingon. Fair enough. And yeah, Bahana said DS9's version of disaster. So, naval warfare episode, Samantha. What'd you think?
Yeah. So I accidentally watched this one at the end of the last
Ooh.
series. So I don't remember it very well, but I do remember it being super dramatic and really just one of those self-contained stories with the damage of the ship sort of forcing people together, shut off from other people on the ship, particularly like Kira and Cisco, Dax and Bashir, and then this was the one with Cork and James Cromwell, right?
Yep, exactly. James Cromwell. Yep, you cannot forget that.
You can't, and also you can't like not recognize him, even though he's like fully. I was like, oh, it's James Cromwell.
Yeah, he
like didn't.
Doesn't it? I don't know if it's just because he's so visible as an actor that it's hard for us. I mean, his acting is great, right?
Yeah, yeah. Not a knock on his acting at all. It's just I think it's his eyes, like that you just see, like you're James Cromwell. But anyway, I love these kinds of storytelling, this kind of storytelling trope of pushing people together in this way. You know, I felt like the battle side was almost just a conduit to make that happen. And I really like these kinds of stories because, when done well, they're so great for character development. And particularly Cisco or Kira and Cisco was really moving for me.
Yeah, I mean, it's reminiscent of one of our favorite TNG episodes, too, when Keiko has the baby and Worf is stuck and Picard's with the kids and Geordi and Beverly are stuck together. Like, it's those, you're right.
Exactly.
And it's a great way to sort of put characters that they don't normally have an excuse to have scenes together in. And
right.
And they are so good, and they're all so talented. Yeah, the definitely, I think we'll talk about Kira and Cisco, but just the comedy aspect of it, I gotta say, Quark and Hanok, who's James Cromwell, when that torpedo launches in the hull, it like launches itself in there, it makes me laugh every single time. It is so funny. In like an otherwise very tense episode, I just think it's
exactly
so funny.
They had such a great like moments of comic relief in, you're right, like a really tense episode. And they were so fun to watch together because it starts with him accusing Quark of being Quark, essentially. It's like, well, and then towards the end, they like work together to solve the torpedo issue, or like they have to take something out of another thing. I can't.
yeah. And then, because then like Quark basically like they've kind of narrowed it down, but then Quark just kind of has to instinct it, and they're all just like,
yeah, it's this one.
Yep.
Cut the red wire. No.
Oh, it's so great. It's so funny.
Yeah.
So one of the ones I like, one of the pairings that I really like, I think they're all great, but I like the fact that they paired Jadzia and Bashir together, because even though that was a little bit tropey at the beginning, because Bashir had this crush on Jadzia, again, we've seen them weaving in these like closures and openers of, you know, like they did with Cisco's relationship, that they gave very good closure on his relationship with Jennifer to lead into Cassidy Yates. And I feel like this is a great closure for Bashir and Jadzia, where it's like they are literally alone together, literally facing death, and they still are like, nope, we've moved past that. And I really like that.
Absolutely. I felt that as well. Like, and Bashir, like, you know, he has to protect her in such a way that it could have gone one way, and it clearly was like, nope, friends.
Yeah.
Like they care about each other deeply, but they are friends. And I think it was a lot of Bashir sort of going like, yeah, okay, this is.
And I mean, he even says it explicitly. I think at one point he was like, man, 2 years ago, I would have dreamed for this scenario. And
exactly.
Yeah. So I think that it's really good, and it made a lot of sense. But yeah, so I'm curious, what about the Kira and Cisco scene stood out so much to you? Because it is really powerful for their character development and relationship.
It is, yeah. And I think, well, first of all, it seemed like he was like gonna go. I mean, he was clearly really close to the end. And her sort of like reaction to that, I think, was interesting, because she, I think in real time, was realizing, I'm gonna lose somebody who I haven't allowed to be a friend, maybe. Because she mentioned something like, you are so chummy with everybody else, and I feel like we don't talk. We talk about work. We talk about work, and so she's realizing that she wants more out of that relationship. And is really in this place of, you, like, please don't leave, because we're gonna be friends.
Because our story isn't over yet, and I think that we've been seeing that with her evolution and character development, because we talked about how she had recently, I think it was the end of season 3, kind of confronted Cisco with saying to herself and to him that she does view him as the emissary.
There was that whole thing too, yeah.
And now, but it's like, okay, so we've gone from her just being professional colleagues to her saying, no, my relationship with religion is very important to how I view our relationship, and to now be in the position where she's like, okay, but actually I now view you as a friend. Like, now we've just grown, and I think through those admissions and through their time together, and she doesn't want that to be cut off short.
Totally. And I love that moment where she's like, I know this makes you uncomfortable, but I'm going to pray. Like, there's nothing else I know how to do right now. And I have been appreciating that they're not shying away from that religious aspect for her, because it's, to me, I have a very complicated relationship with religion, and particularly when it comes to science, I'm like, that seems so like you have such this intense faith, and yet you're a brilliant scientist. It's like, you could have a million conversations about that. And I'm not saying it's completely black and white, because I think there is a lot of interesting, there is an interesting relationship between the two, but her devoutness is just, I like that they explore that.
Yeah, and I mean, you said it exactly right. They didn't shy away from that, because if you think about it, it's like, that's what she would do. We don't want to, like, it might seem weird in Star Trek to have a character praying as another character is close to death, but that's consistent with who Kira is and who her story has become, so it's great. Hey, Peter. I also didn't get a chance to say hi to Mikhail for being here, and DS9er agrees the affection and respect is really powerful. Any kind of last thoughts on this one?
I was gonna say, I like the Worf O'Brien dynamic in this episode was super, like, I liked it. Like, O'Brien kind of puts his foot down and schools Worf, and like, you gotta like treat these ensigns a little differently. They're not like they're not used to being on a starship, or we're not on a starship. Like, not that you need to coddle them, but here's some advice. Yeah. And Worf kind of takes it, like, he takes that advice and it works. And he's like, oh, okay. Yeah. O'Brien's got a point.
It's really good, and because you pointed this out last time when sort of Worf and O'Brien were coming back in, and who outranked whom, and like, it's like they're both in operations, but who's been there the longest, and who's an officer, and who's commissioned, and so I like that they're still building that up. They're still developing that. I think that's fair. And yeah, senior enlisted taking care of junior officers. Yep, new to the program. I think that's fairly fair. And Laura, yeah, the characters are so strong by season 4. They really stay true to that, which is impressive. And then they and then Kira and Cisco go to the Holosuite game. Yay!
I know, that was so sweet when at the end, do you want to go to a baseball game? Yes.
Do. Yeah, that's so great. I love that. Okay. I
want to say, I love that Cisco loves baseball. Like, that little detail is like really fun for me.
It is. They stay so consistent with it too. It's so great. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fabulous. All right. I'm pushing us, not just because of our normal timing, but because I can't wait to talk about this next episode, which is Little Green Men.
Oh, good.
I know we had some dissenters of time travel episodes in the chat last week, which is fine. We accept that. We all have what works for us and what doesn't. But I am a sucker for Little Green Men. I think it's fabulous.
So good.
That's amazing, Todd. I love that. So if you don't remember, Quark, and we're not giving you any context other than time travel, and I'm squeeing about it, but Quark and Rom, this is where they're taking Nog to Starfleet Academy, and Quark's personal shuttle that he just got from his cousin. And during the trip, they experience a temporal anomaly. But essentially, the sabotage ship gets flooded with chemosite. The chemosite does stuff that throws them back in time. I did a whole science of this episode on my YouTube channel, if anyone wants to check that out. That was one of our episode clubs last year. It's really fun. And but they basically get thrown to 1947 Earth, where they find themselves in Roswell, New Mexico. So good.
This was so much fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes if it's going to clearly be a Ferengi-centric episode, I'm like, I love you guys, but I don't know. And this one I was like, yes, this fits completely.
Yeah, because I mean, we said this from the beginning when you first were introduced to the Ferengi in TNG, and I love the Ferengi.
Oh, Voyager.
Or in Voyager, yeah, that was actually, it was the first one was in Voyager. And I was like, Ferengi. And you're like, what is wrong with you that you like the Ferengi? And I think there's still some gems that are to come, but they're definite. I mean, you're starting to see those ones now. And
completely. Yeah. I finished watching these episodes yesterday and I was like, God, I literally said to myself, the Ferengi are so awesome. It's like, that's so new for me to say that.
Who am I? Where did that come from?
Yeah, so exactly. But yeah, this was, I mean, I loved it just because the Ferengi of all of the Star Trek characters look the most classic, like 1950s alien. Like that's what they look like coming from Mars. Like, and so they look so much like what these guys would have seen in like comic books or like, and just there's so many gems in this episode. Like when they're trying to communicate, they're like all the humans are being earnest, like maybe they're trying to say something, and they're just trying to turn on their universal translator to be like
so good.
I wrote that down too, Bahana. It was like Quark describing the Earth, and it's like baseball, darts, root beer, atom bombs, like just all in the same exact tone of voice. Like they're all the same horribleness.
That's so funny. It's so great. And actually Todd makes a great point, and let's take the step back for it. It's the first one that really centers on Rom and Nog, like really centers on them. We got those little glimpses when Nog is talking about wanting to join Starfleet and the little confrontations Rom has had with his brother. But there's still a lot more that we haven't seen. So this is kind of that first big one. And Nog going off to Starfleet Academy, I love it. I think that whole opening where they're auctioning his stuff off and Worf gets the tooth shaver and...
Yes. So how much? I know. I love that. Honestly, every time they bring up Nog with Starfleet, I'm like, I still am not believing he actually got in. And like, I'm not believing that he's actually going, like the first Ferengi in Starfleet. I'm just like, that's so cool.
It's so cool. Yeah. And I loved when Bashir and O'Brien come up to them as they're leaving and give him the encyclopedia, like the travel dictionary basically for Earth. And he's like, just read that. And my favorite gem in this, is when he's going through it as they're traveling. And Nog is like, hey, did you know about this? Did you know about this? And he's like, hey, this Gabriel Bell looks a lot like Cisco. Yeah. Oh, man. That's brilliant. That's just...
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Such a good little... toss in a throwback.
Yeah, it's great. And it just like, because it was so smart to keep that consistency, because, and again, when you're messing with these time travel episodes, especially with Earth, like that was one where a big impact of that did affect history. And so for them to acknowledge that, I think that's fabulous. That's awesome, Doctor Who. I love that. Let me see. A lot of people are saying, it's not my favorite Ferengi story, but it still makes me laugh. As DS9er, it's, and Jedi, hi, said the Rom quote about always being smart, but just lack the self-confidence.
I've always been smart, brother.
Just lack self-confidence. It's so good.
So cute.
I love it. Another great, I mean, we're just going to talk about our favorite parts of this episode, because it's just, it's not consequential, it's just funny. Speaking of the Quark assessment of 20th century United States is his like ability to take over and run the world. He's like, we could do this. This is capitalism. Like
these people are so stupid.
It's very on brand for Quark.
Doesn't he think about it's like tobacco? Like he's going to become a tobacco overlord.
Yeah, he's like, so this is addictive and it kills people, but people are smoking it and selling it. It's like, we got to get in on that.
It's like he can't believe how lucky he could be. Or like, wait a second.
It was so great.
That's awesome.
And I will never stop laughing when the Ferengi screech out of fear. That high-pitched scream when they're coming at them gets me every time. It just cracks me up.
So funny.
Oh, Todd, that's a great story. So Todd shared the story that Max Grodenchek, who plays Rome, told Todd once that he never really knew if he was ever coming back after he was done with an episode. This was the first time he thought he might have a steady job there. That's awesome. That's so sweet.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So we love Rom. Like every time he comes back now, he's got a little bit of tiny bigger role. And like, at first when he, like earlier in DS9, I was like, I don't know. Like Cork is clearly the one that we're supposed to be sort of following. But now I'm like, Rob is so awesome.
He really is. He's just such a good character, such a good natural counterpoint to Cork, and just so great. Oh, sorry, Turquoise. Well, you made it. No worries. Feel free to share any thoughts on the Little Green Men episode before we move on, because we love that. DS Niner put the quote, "If they buy poison, they'll buy anything," which is hilarious. And yeah, so much Rom goodness to come, Astro. We love it.
Oh, the goodbye scene. Yeah, I was going to bring that up. It's just like, I mean, Jake and Nog have gone, like, they seem like they've had such a natural friendship. Like, they've gone through issues and they've grown together, and now they're like real friends for life. Like, it just feels like that. And watching them say goodbye at their spot was like really sad.
Yeah. And it felt so, I don't know, like, it really actually touches me, that scene, because it's like they are still kids and they're having that like very nostalgic moment that you do when you're 18, you know, like when you're saying goodbye to friends in high school, and you know, you're just like, oh, this is it, man, this is always, and little do you know how much like your life is going to change and move and evolve and come back and all of those.
Exactly.
But they really value that spot on the promenade, and they're like, oh, we were so young then.
Exactly.
So sweet.
So sweet.
Yeah, I love it. All right, any last ones on that one?
We can move on.
Yeah. The next one is the Sword of Kalash. Whoa! Love this one. All right, Theron, if you're still in the chat, this is your time to shine. Okay, so this is the episode where Kor returns to the station. Kor! To recruit, and ends up recruiting Lieutenant Commander Worf, as well as Jadzia Dax, to help find the ancient Sword of Kalash. After they find the sword, they are forced to evade the forces of Toral, son of Duras, who's back. Jerk. And Worf and Kor do not agree on what they should do with the Sword of Kalash now that they have it. Love this episode. I mean, I know we've joked before about my prime affinity for Klingon episodes, and that I love even the heaviest political ones, but I just feel like this has such a great adventure story to it. But as someone who is less Ferengi inclined, what did you think?
Let's Klingon inclined?
Or sorry, Klingon, yeah.
Yeah. If a choice between a Ferengi episode and the Klingon episode came up, I would probably still choose the Ferengi episode. But I love Klingons. They're a lot to take. So anytime it's clearly going to be Klingon, I'm just like, okay, let me get up and stretch and get ready for this. But no, this was really fun. I loved the sort of mythology aspect of it. You know, it was very like King Arthur's like Sword in the Stone hunt for this mythical, like potentially mythical object. It's all based on their legends, and they actually find it, and then it goes into like, I think somebody mentioned in the chat, like kind of One Ring-esque personality changes in people. There's like a great, what to me looked like a callback to Last Crusade when he's hanging off the cliff, and when Worf says "let go" instead of meaning like "let it go," he actually means "let go." I was like, oh,
that's so funny.
But yeah, no, really, really fun episode. I liked seeing. I feel like we kind of saw Worf in a little bit of a different light here, in two ways, like kind of the power hungriness, and then the real sort of, what's the word? Kind of no questions asked about this quest. You know, he's like, yes, I want to go.
Interesting. Yeah. I think there's a few, we could actually talk about this for a little while.
Yeah.
because this is a really good episode. You mentioned the kind of Holy Grail. I get a very Moby Dick feel from this, like especially at the opening from Core, that he's like, this is the thing. This is the last great story he's going to be able to tell. And yeah, Todd mentioned, but John Colicos, who played Core in this episode, he had come back and he was already in Deep Space Nine. You saw him in the Blood Oath episode. But then this was that same Klingon who was all the way back in the original series, Erin to Mercy. And they call that back as like, oh yeah, that Kirk story that you had there. Dax knew all the cool original series Klingons. This is true. But I think it's a great, for having Worf, who's a character that we have known for so long, like, O'Brien's one thing because we didn't really get to explore him terribly much in TNG, but Worf we know pretty well. We had a lot of arcs in TNG with Worf. I feel like this is another great layer on top of that where, when he sees Core there and he wants to introduce himself, he's like, but I'm not worthy. And Jadzia's like, no, that's like, you let me introduce you. He'll love you, and just to see Worf in awe of this Klingon, and then I think, I kind of summed up this theme as it's like one of those don't meet your heroes type, because he's like this aging, fallible legend, and he just, he breaks your heart at times, then he's very frustrating at other times, and John Colicos, I feel like, kills it in this episode.
Kills it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Although there were a few moments where I wasn't sure if this was intentional, but it almost seemed like he was a little senile, like, and not willing to, see two sides of Worf, and that part of his character was interesting.
Yeah, yeah, and we do love Core for the, as Turquoise mentioned, the trans allegory. We had mentioned that was in the Blood Oath episode where Jadzia says, he's like, Curzon, my old friend. I'm Jadzia now. Jadzia, my old friend. It's just iconic and fabulous.
Oh my God. Seeing Jadzia with the Klingons is so much fun. Like, cause she's like, there's like literally no, there's no question in their mind. Like, you are you, and we are we, and here we go. Like, I love that it's just not a thing.
Yeah, I really do too.
Like,
yeah. No, I think that like they do such a great job of her just being so natural around them that her gender, species, anything never comes into it. She's just partying with the Klingons, and I love. That's why I've always mentally in my brain. I've mentioned this before. I always struggle with the fact that like Curzon is a Trill, not a Klingon. Like, I always do that.
It's so funny that you brought that up because I was thinking the same thing as I was watching. I was like, wait, was Curzon a Klingon? Like,
yeah. But nope, just partied with Klingons hard.
Yep.
Yeah, I love this. We get our Worfable moments when he's awkward with Core, which is fabulous. And then I think the another sort of great thing with Worf in this episode is that it's really his past continually haunts him, and it's just heartbreaking to watch. He wants to move past it. He's like with Core, they're having these breakthroughs. He feels like he's a Klingon now. And then, the fact that Tyrell shows up and that all comes up again, and now Core is like judging him just as harshly is hard to watch.
Yeah, it is hard to watch because it's one of those things of like, you're right, he wants to just move on, and he's being constantly confronted with these decisions he's made throughout his life. And to me, it really spoke to that, that personal cost that can come from doing either the right thing or the hard thing, being the one that has the courage to actually make a decision, because sometimes that has consequences that, you might be making the decision in the moment, hoping that it doesn't come back to haunt you, but because it's the right thing to do at the time. But then if it does, it's like, it's just really hard to watch him having to constantly prove himself to such an honor-based culture,
And to someone he respects so heavily. Also,
right.
Cassidy, hi! Subscription! Thank you. Okay. So, you put a comment in these notes that I love and I want to throw to the chat because we were talking about the Sword of Kahless and how it's like this Holy Grail, Indiana Jones, Sword in the Stone type thing. You put the note in here that is the sword cursed, or does it just bring out the worst side of Klingon power-hungry behavior? And I love that question. I'm really curious what everyone else thinks, but what made you think of that?
Well, the personality changes seemed very stark after they had held it for a little bit, like prolonged periods of time. It was sort of like very One Ring-esque. I was like, I am holding this power, and now it's calling to me to either present it to the Emperor or become an Emperor myself. Like, it seemed like that was what both Worf and Kor were hearing and feeling in themselves during their journey. And yeah, I mean, it seemed obvious that they were having these personality differences, but I wasn't sure.
Yeah. So I
what
think
that was about.
Yeah, so it looks like Todd and D Starfire were kind of wondering the same thing, that it's got that intoxication possibility. I kind of agree a little bit with Cassidy on the feeling like it's almost like they curse it themselves by putting that much weight on the object itself. Like, whether or not there's a literal intoxication that happens, there's so much. I mean, it's the Sword of Kahless. Like, we've heard that so many times. And so this idea that now it's just purely cursed because of the cultural significance turns you a little bit mad when you're literally holding it. I think is really fascinating. I love that.
Exactly.
Suggestion.
Yeah. I think I was leaning toward that sort of explanation, in that it itself doesn't have any extra paranormal properties. It's simply the force of holding something that's been so legendary in the culture for so long, and causing them to behave differently.
Yeah.
And I think, I mean, power situations will do that no matter what.
Yeah. And the Klingons are a little bit obsessed with things like that.
A little bit.
Just a little bit.
Just a tad.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. Also, the design of that bat'leth is fabulous. I love that.
Really cool.
Yeah, so good. And then I wanted to look up, what was the... Oh, yeah. It's one of my favorite Klingon sayings that I never remember, and they said it in this one, but Majram, which just means like, good night, I'm sleepy. Sleep has come. Majram. And I feel like I need to say that more in my life. So that's your Klingon word phrase of the day.
Majram.
Yep, exactly. And Cassidy said, it's like holding a wizard-style staff makes me feel like a wizard. That's,
sure.
There you go.
Yeah.
I think we would all agree with that.
Makes sense.
All right. Any last ones on this?
Nope.
Okay. So last week, you lamented that there are not enough holodeck malfunction episodes in Deep Space Nine. Here's your first holodeck malfunction episode. And it is a beauty.
It is perfect.
Our Man Bashir. This is our Julian Bashir James Bond crossover episode. He plays a 1960s secret agent. Garrick invades his game space and mocks him relentlessly for the vision of what spies are like in 1960s television and films. Then a transporter accident as the crew is returning back from a mission results in their likenesses and their signatures being imported as characters in the Holosuite game. So they basically become unwitting DLCs. Or not DLCs, NPCs. And and Bashir and Garrick basically have to make sure none of them die.
Yeah.
And keep the story progressing as it is. Freaking love this episode.
So much fun. So much fun. High stakes, like the safety protocols get turned off. So it's like when Bashir realizes that, he's like, oh crap, like they could actually die in here. I need to, yeah. But of any holodeck episode to like satiate those of us who were missing holodeck episodes in DS9, this is a pretty darn good one.
Okay, so yeah, DS9er fan asked you, is it just what the doctor ordered?
Oh yeah, it's what the doctor ordered.
That is amazing. And and Astro mentioned it's just Garrick in a turtleneck. That's all that needs to be said. You're not wrong.
Bashir in a tux, Garrick in a turtleneck. I was very happy. I was a very happy girl.
Exactly. Yep, Todd said the OSHA people need to safety audit these holodecks and transporters. This is not wrong. Oh, Ecom, fabulous. Hi, everyone. Oh, that's so funny. So welcome new subscribers. We got Bahana, DPI, and Darth Bob. And Garrick's gonna celebrate with us. Jazz hands.
Perfect.
I gotta say too, we've talked about this before about the DS9 agrees on the Tux comment. The shipping that some of us may do between Bashir and Garrick, and there's kind of a great allegorical commentary that Garrick has when he comes into Bashir's holosuite program, and he's like this close to him, and he's like, I know you have secrets, and you're keeping it all from us, and you normally don't keep secrets, so we need to I want to be in your secret club, and I want to know what these secrets are. And I'm like, really? Tell us more.
I know.
Tell us more.
I was the same. I was like, oh, they like, yeah.
Oh,
so good.
Laura, absolutely. Garrick custom made his tux to crash Bashir's party. He watched Bashir go into that holosuite dressed in a tux, and he got on that super fast. Totally agree.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
So
but
good.
yeah, I mean, this ship was all but confirmed in my mind, and I will not hear any other opinions.
Yeah. No, and Cassidy, I agree. Like they have, it's like we could debate probably based that's like a big parameter into how much fan fiction you've read, how much you think has happened. Now I plugged the book before, but Andrew Robinson, who played Garrick's book, A Stitch in Time, about Garrick and his letters to Bashir and his relationship with him. So I kind of have that in my mind, but fan fiction will definitely change that for you too. But you're absolutely right. I think they have that emotional connection regardless of how much romance is under that surface. But they've got something, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I love Samantha's just like, yeah, no, I will not hear otherwise. No one can argue this. So what do you think of the story in general, though, having it be a James Bond type?
I mean, it was just awesome. Like, to see them all in those really stereotypical, not in a bad way, but James Bond roles was like really, really fun. And clearly Avery Brooks was just relishing those speeches. Like it was bordering on overacting and so
fabulous. He is so in that. He's like, yes,
yeah,
ew, and storms, and he's like, oh,
yeah. And the way he speaks is always a little bit odd to me. But in this one, like he was like raising his voice on wrong words. Like it was just but it was still so fun to watch. Like, and I mean, as Malfunction episodes go, like the transporter accidents are, I mean, I'm like, who was it that hated? Oh, Barclay.
Yeah.
Barclay. Yeah. Like transporters are like, they don't seem that safe. Clearly, like the way they solved this issue was impressive. They're like, was it Eddington?
Yeah, Eddington. Yep.
Eddington was like, we need to.
No spoilers, people.
Please. the computer doesn't have enough space for these people, so we need to shut the whole station down basically to do this. And Quark and Rom helping with the holodecks. It was so sweet.
He was the true hero, DS9.
Yeah.
That's funny, Cassidy. That's hilarious. Yeah, I just think it's probably, I agree, like, in terms of holodeck malfunctions, transporter accidents, this is a stressful episode. This is stressful, and they're down to the wire in the climax and trying to get them out, and it's good.
Yeah, exactly. The time pressure, and then there's a moment where they say their brain patterns are in the rest of the ship. So I'm like, well, are they gonna like take over the ship? Are their brains gonna do weird things? Like this could have gone on. This could have there could have been a lot other stuff happening.
It's so funny.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it so much. Some other sort of favorite moments for me is when Jadzia's character is, and he's like, I need your hairpin. She kind of takes it out and does that. And Garrick is like, all right, snapshot into your personality.
That was so funny. Yeah, Garrick was like, oh.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Damn it. Hi, Doc Nader, by the way. The last comment I just want to make, and I want to hear your thoughts on this too. I think it's hilarious that all the commentary that Garrick gives him about being what a real spy is. And it's funny, and then it gets dark, and it gets really serious when Garrick is just like, no, if you really want to be a spy, if you're in here cosplaying as some sort of like spy, but you don't have the balls to like leave them behind, then you need to check your obsessions. And it's intense. It's a really good scene.
It was a good scene, and I think there were things that Garrick was missing about escapism. Like he didn't get that. But he was almost offended that Bashir was playing spy, and Garrick's like, I've lived this. You don't, and you're just doing some frivolous, pretend game, which of course the pretend game was real. Right. So there's that so Garrick's like skills could serve that plot, of course, of giving this advice, but
then remembering that it's a story, right?
Yeah.
That Bashir's playing it through not as an actual spy. He's playing it through as a James Bond movie. And it's like, and he knows the tropes and the cliches that he's got to get through to get out of here. And Garrick, I think you put it brilliantly that he just doesn't get that escapism aspect at all. And which is ironic given their normal conversations.
But I think, so it was an interesting, you're right. It like starts out like Garrick's just kind of bewildered at this weird spy game, but then it takes a turn, like really, and he's like, you need to take it seriously, and Bashir's like, no, I don't. Other than the fact that in that moment it's real, but
and Turquoise and Sky said the exact right thing, that that Cardassian literature is very, very literal, and they have had those debates before. Tumor Boy said it's like a real life ER doc watching ER, or detectives watching Law and Order, or astrophysicists watching Star Trek. That's a good point. Like, we were all joking when the Mars landing was happening, and we were like, they have to depolarize something. They have to reverse the polarities or something.
Right.
All right, so let's move on, because we need to keep things going here. But we're going to end on the two-parter, and we'll kind of talk about them together. Homefront and Paradise Lost, which personally, and I think this has made a lot of lists, is some of the best multi-episode arcs of Star Trek. This is a deep, dark DS9 episode. So if you don't remember this is the one where Earth is now subject to an attack by the Dominion during a meeting. And Cisco's called back to Earth to assist Admiral Layton with planetary security, now that they feel like they have changelings there. they discover that Leighton is essentially attempting a coup d'etat to seize power for Starfleet. So we have coups, we have, martial law. We also get to meet Cisco's dad, who I definitely want to talk to you about that. But yeah, this is a really good, intense episode. And before we do that, 98 plus 2 and Kataro, thank you so much for following. All right. Carry on, Samantha. What do you think of this one?
Oh, wow. This was a doozy. You're right. Lots of stuff happening. I thought it was my conclusion after this episode. I thought it was interesting that they've got all of this stuff to worry about. They've got changelings and Dominion and Founders and lots of other things going on, and now this episode concluded with like, but we still have to worry about corrupt humans. Like, there were no changelings taking over Earth at this juncture. It was literally a human power hungry plot line, like, and it just was like, the changelings we have to watch out for them, but we have to watch out for ourselves too. Yeah. And it was just kind of, I don't know what the word I'm looking for. Intense. It was intense. And like another corrupt admiral. I mean, every time it happens, is there no decent admiral anywhere?
Only in Discovery. Get Admiral Cornwell and our favorite Dadmiral.
Yeah.
Also, hi, Professor Noor, and I missed the comments about the quantum comments on the Mars landing, so thank you. But yeah, Turquoise mentioned now we get to see Starfleet on Earth, which is interesting. I personally really like that. And then Professor Noor mentioned as well, it stays timely, even over 20 years since it aired. And I think you're absolutely right. They, because we've seen this corruption and power stuff with the Klingons, and we've obviously seen it with Kai Wynn. Shout out. And then obviously with Gul Dukat, but they very rarely, other than the admirals being like difficult, this is sedition, treason. Like, this is not okay. And it's really fascinating how they uncover all of it.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's not until the very tail end, last quarter of the two-parter that they realize there's actually no changelings for us to worry about right now. It's just the admiral. Like, and he does, like, he makes this seem like Cisco's a changeling with the blood thing. And at first I was like, oh, shit. And then, he's just a slimy guy, the admiral.
They did a good job with him, that's for sure. Oh, avoiding closure. Thank you. We
Red Squad, yeah.
Yes, thank you, Satelia. I think the Red Squad is probably one of the best parts of this, and I think so. This is where the Red Squad is first introduced by Nog when he comes to visit, because Cisco and Jake are there on the planet and they're seeing his dad, and then Nog comes and he basically asks Cisco if he can write him a letter of recommendation to get him into this Red Squadron. And thank you. And then so that's the first introduction, and then as they start to uncover that's what leads them through all this, that you essentially have these group of cadets at Starfleet Academy who are unwittingly being duped into taking these orders and going through these actions, and that's what leads them on the trail to uncovering all of it. And I just think
and I actually didn't follow that super well because there were a lot of like dialogue heavy like scenes of them figuring out what's going on with Red Squad, but it was interesting that the way they figured it out, that with Cisco being like, wait, Nog mentioned this group that, is new, and suddenly putting that together, and Nog just innocently wanting to be a part of the cool kids. Um,
And then, I mean, Cisco holds his feet to the fire too when Nog, he's like, all right, you need to tell me the names of the people in this Red Squad. Nog's like, I can't do that. That's like a betrayal of the Red Squad, and I need to be there because that's where we do secrets. And he's like, no, I'm a captain. I think you misunderstood. I wasn't asking. Like, you need to tell me who this is. And then he does. I mean, immediately. He's like, yep, right, got it. And
yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, which I love. And again, I love that they're keeping Nog involved in the story. Like, I feel like I'm afraid that we're not going to see him again every time he's on screen, because he's like, he's in Starfleet now, and like, he's not going to come back. But to see him, saying hi to Jake and at the restaurant and, well,
let's talk about the restaurant real quick then.
Yeah.
So we get to meet Cisco's dad, which I think is just a great layer of character.
It is, because you don't hear him mentioned in conversation. I don't think he's ever mentioned him. And but then you're like, wait, yeah, these people are just in their jobs, and they have parents, and they have family, and his dad's like not a Starfleet guy.
Yep. At all.
At all. So I loved that dynamic. It really created a lot more nuance to Cisco. And I mean, something just makes sense about Cisco being from New Orleans. I don't know why, but I just kind of liked that detail. And watching him with his dad was a really interesting nuance. And then the fact we're starting to get more of that paranoia coming through. Like, his dad doesn't want to take the blood test, and Cisco's like, well, why? And pressuring him, and yeah.
And I think, and I agree to Turquoise. And I think one of the interesting things with having the dad relationship in there is that that's a very intense, layered B plot pretty much to have, where the dad's there, and they could have all this with the changeling aspect, but I think the two-parter gives them the grace to be able to get into really a deep relationship conversation about him aging and him not taking care of himself. And it's hard to watch, but in a well done way.
Really well done. I thought the same thing. It's like they really, I think, bravely took their time through the two-parter to really build that enough for it to feel real, for it to feel, not like, I can't think of the word, but like, it's a big deal. It's like Cisco's like, you have to take better care of yourself. This restaurant's not going to be here if you don't, and all of that. And it felt real and relatable.
Yeah, it really, really does. Drago said the Cisco family relationships is some of the best episodes for sure. Also, I forgot to point out, void enclosure reminded me to hydrate, so thank you. But I think one of the hardest lines that we got from that is, at least the one that stuck with me the most, was when his dad is pushing back against the urge to take care of himself, and he's like, I'm at an age now where taking care of my health is a full-time job, and I don't have enough time to have two full-time jobs, so I want to do the full-time job that means the most to me, which is my restaurant. And it's like, cool. It's really, I don't know if it's just because someone with aging parents who are obsessed with their jobs, that it really, really hit me. That line is really powerful.
Yeah, it hit me too, because it's like, at a certain point, we kind of touched on this a little bit with the visitor. Like, how do you reconcile your relationship with your parents as it continues to change over time?
Yeah. It's really, really hard to deal with. Thanks for letting me know, Void. I'll look into that. I don't know if it might be picking up from my headphones or back feed from the Zoom or anything, but thanks for the heads up. Yeah, it's just really powerful, and I really appreciate it. I mean, this is a heavy two-part, but it advances. I think it's one of those good things that it advances the Dominion War in a way that it reminds us it's still going on. We get to see glimpses of how the rest of the quadrant is coping with it. And then, I mean, like you said, this adds that layer of like, oh no, this is just humans being awful. Like, they're still going to be awful, even in the middle of all of this. I just think it's fascinating and really powerful.
Yeah, it is, yeah. We had O'Brien changeling.
Yes, which is a great scene, because at no point are you questioning that he's O'Brien. He comes in and sits down. It's immediately weird, and it's really good.
Exactly, yeah. But yeah, it's super creepy. Like,
and he's like, yeah, there's only like 4 of us. There's not that many. Like, that's still 4 too many.
4 too many. Exactly.
But I do, but it scares the crap out of me too. And I think, but it's great to give that perspective. And then for Cisco to be the one who's kind of managing all of that throughout, you know, that he's in charge of figuring all of that out is a lot. And then we get the whole, just that vision of, Earth being under martial law, essentially.
Yeah. I mean,
I don't.
Nothing to say. Just good, great.
Some of the DS9 plots, we've just kind of been like, yeah, that's too close. We're just gonna acknowledge it, carry on. But, okay. Any final thoughts on this one? I think that's pretty much it. I mean, it's great to get that context, to move the story, and just as a intense 2-parter with a great twist, it's just a great story.
Yeah, exactly.
Freaking admirals, man.
God, what is it about that?
Freaking admirals. Okay, so last few minutes, we are going to be, I think we'll be back next week. I think that's the plan still. And we will be discussing the next 6 episodes, which are Crossfire, Return to Grace, The Sons of Moog, Klingons.
I got that.
Bar Association, which is also brilliant and relevant to our times, but in a really good way. So I'm very excited about that one. Accession, and then Rules of Engagement. So we've got some pretty good Deep Space Nine episodes coming up. So that's in season 4. So check those out. So again, it's Crossfire through Rules of Engagement. We'll be discussing these next week. And thanks to everyone in the chat for following and taking part. And we're catching up with Jake and Nog. I'm sorry. With Jake discussing this, because Erin, so Void asked, so Samantha's a first-time viewer of DS9, and you have seen Voyagers, what we started with.
Voyager, TNG, and Discovery.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
So we're all caught up on those. And thank you all. I really enjoy the conversation. You can find the link to the YouTube channel down below if you missed part of this. We'll be putting that up shortly. And we'll be back to the non-mirror universe, Erin, when I remember to reverse my camera back again next time. And awesome, everyone. So thanks again, and we'll catch you next time. All right.
Bye.
Bye.